Welcome to the UK OCR Community Podcast, presented by Obstacle Racing Media. Each episode, we'll be talking to race directors, elite runners, weekend warriors, and frankly, anyone else from the UK OCR scene that will talk to us. Here is your host, Alan, aka Muddy Duck.
Anywhere in Chicken Town. The bloody scene is bloody sad. The bloody news is bloody bad.
Greetings, friends, acquaintances, and anyone else who just happens to be listening. Welcome to another edition of the UK OCR podcast. Yes, what a week we have got planned. Coming up on Wednesday of this week is the live showing of the UK Obstacle Racing Awards on YouTube, 8 p.m. Don't miss it. Set your timer. Go over to YouTube now. Click on follow. You'll get instant notifications. We're testing out some new fancy dancing software on that show as well to see what we can do when we go to the live showing of the UK OCR race series, which has happened in this year again. Oh, it's an exciting time. It's exciting time. And then at the weekend, we are off down to Nuts. So I did promise. And if you're going to Nuts, we have got some freebies for you. Yes, some freebies from Kit Bricks. So if you head over to the British Obstacle Sports stand, there are some freebies going to be down there from UK OCR, some caffeine bullets, some Kit Bricks slap bands, some Kit Bricks stickers. Now they are limited, and we have got 35 of them laid to one side for the 35 people that said they were going to the awards. Okay, so if you said you're going to the awards and you'd signed up for the awards, there's 35 put to one side for you guys. You still have to go to Nuts though, unfortunately, and unless you want to pay some postage, and then you can contact me and I will post them out to you. The little freebies that we were given for down there, so there's some caffeine bullet trial packs with a discount code on. There's a Kit Bricks on there, slap bands and Kit Brick stickers. And the 35 people also going to draw to win a tote bag and a Kit Bricks poncho. So both from Kit Bricks, which is great news. They should be here this week. So tune in onto YouTube on Wednesday. Come down to the British Obstacle Sports stand at Nuts on the Saturday. I'm going to be doing 4 laps, taking the new gimbal down as well. So hopefully we're going to get some good footage, so maybe some interviews if I can finish fast enough to get some of the people that finished. And we'll fetch them next week, hopefully. In the meantime, guys and girls, here is me with one of the things I'm going to be testing down at Nuts, Enduo Sports Nutrition, which is my new best friend for those fueling runs. I've got James on, or Mr. Enduo. Here we go. Greetings and salutations, Mr. James. I'm going to call you Mr. James from Enduo because I never knew your name until it came up on your on the Zoom call tonight. But James Taylor Medhurst, welcome to the UK OCR podcast. How are you?
Very well, Alan. Thank you very much. And I'm very used to Enduo Guy. I get that a lot. It is James, but Enduo Guy is also just as good. Happy to be known by the brand. It means it's working.
Without a doubt. A few people have brought you to my attention over the last 12 months, and I've never really thought to myself, do I really need to look at nutrition? And then I'm going to say Louise Ferryman mentioned me and she went, Alan, you need to look at nutrition for WTM, for World's Toughest Minutes coming up this year. And I was like, yeah, but do I? And she went, yes, and you need to look at Enduo. And then we just got in touch and we started talking and one thing led to another and I've been testing it. So I thought, let's get you on here because to me, they're a game changer. And we'll talk about, for me, why a little bit later. But let's discuss you. Let's discuss your background. What is your background in sport?
So my background in sport, crikey, it has been, I'm 41 and I've spent 41 years literally playing sport. As soon as I was able to do anything, I was doing something. And through school, it was a lot of rugby, athletics. I've got 3 brothers. There's 4 boys, fairly close in age. So you can imagine it was a lot of fun. And we were never still. And we also ate a lot. We all played rugby, all did judo, combat sports from a very young age, athletics, a bit of football, basketball through school. absolutely loved it, loved sport, and we needed it. It was obvious we needed it, just to kind of settle us down. And then leaving school, my background is actually as a carpenter shop fitter. So I got into the building industry and continued training always. By this time, I was more focused on Thai boxing. Through my sort of combat sports journey, starting with judo, going through like multiple different, mostly Japanese disciplines, karate based stuff. And I started boxing with my brother-in-law at a boxing gym, and I saw the posters on the wall, and straight away, I recognized the Thai boxing, the Muay Thai, the shorts, everything. And that's what I've been looking to do. Obviously we've all seen Kickboxer, Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah, great film.
Oh, mate, it's just, and so that was it. And so I asked the guys at the boxing gym, when do they do this? And they said, they do it a couple of days a week, Wednesday and Saturday. So that was it. I every day turned up, loved it, and got heavily involved with those guys. And by far, hands down for me, still the best combat sport out there. I mean, it's the reason why MMA fighters, their stand up is Thai boxing, and then their floor work is jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu was never my bag. It is in my family. My cousin is actually a female European jiu-jitsu champion.
Wow.
So there's a lot of sport in the family. But yeah, Thai boxing, absolutely fantastic. I love it, but it comes with its drawbacks, and that's it's obviously quite hard wearing on the body. So
I was just going to say pain. I was going to say drawback for me just would be pain.
Yeah, well, pain's kind of is an interpretation, isn't it? Is it sort of part of the enjoyment? But the injuries, no one enjoys injuries, that's for sure. And it's a lot of neck issues, elbow tendonitis. And it's difficult, when you get to a certain level, your coach and the club always want you to fight. If you say no, it can get a bit awkward because they're like, why you're training hard and you do it, you should be fighting, representing the club. So it happened. I floated around a few clubs because I was working in London and living outside at the beginning, and also just testing out clubs. I just like to train. And sort of bounce off of people, meet new people, different skills. But more often than not, they try and kind of push you into the champion, the competition fighting, which was fun, but that takes its toll because I like to, when I compete at something, I like to push as hard as I can. So it took a lot of time with the training. Injuries, fighting was harder. You do a full day at work and then you go and train. You'd finish at like 9:30, 10 o'clock. You wake up in the morning battered and then have to get on the tools, so it kind of took its toll. At the same sort of time, I was working in London doing a lot of building work, and a friend of mine was a PT, someone I grew up with, best mate, and I played a lot of sport with him. He was an amazing sportsman himself. And he said, you should just come and try the PT work. You'd love it. And he had a lot of clients that were keen to do sort of kickboxing style exercise. Some were keen to learn traditional Thai boxing, but most of it was kind of like a fitness based thing, which he couldn't do. So I shadowed him. I met a couple of his clients, and he basically hooked me up with a few ladies in Fulham, and that kind of kicked off the PT stuff. That was a long time. I'm trying to think of the years. This is a long time ago. When was that? I don't know, 2009 or something. So yeah, did my PT qualification, and just started kind of getting off the tools, more into the PT. And the more people I met, the more it was pretty clear that everyone kind of has these underlying issues. Whether it's an old injury or, it just isn't it's not as simple as just giving someone a workout or beasting someone. If you really want to get the best out of them, you kind of had to learn them a little bit, if that makes sense.
That does make sense, and it's something that I haven't learned yet. I'm someone who gets injuries and trains through them throughout the years. I'm now 56. People know that, and I'm now just learning to look after myself. Doing the right stretching, doing everything. And I mean, you'll know this from doing all that. If you don't stretch and don't cool down afterwards in the right ways, injuries just prolong and get worse and worse.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like a ticking time bomb. But it also, helps with your recovery as well. So if you're an athlete that's pretty serious about their sport, in between the competitions, you've only got a set amount of time that you can exercise and recover to get the best benefit before the next competition. And something you'd see a lot is people kind of panic and they just train. Certainly the way I was originally taught was we had a saying, and it was train hard, fight harder, so there was no off days, and now people are realizing that the recovery is as important as the training. So you see a lot of like Norwegian Olympians doing this zone 2 training or nasal breathing, nasal training, so they can still build and develop that engine. They're not losing any sort of points off their VO2 max, but it enables them to still get the volume of training in. So I'm trying to say, without overtraining. So it's something you see a lot more now.
Cool. So you're doing the boot camping, and then after that?
Yeah, so boot camping, I kind of realised people needed a bit more than just the PT. So I looked into it, and I did like a sports massage. I did my level 5 sports massage and anatomy and physiology. And that really opened my eyes to how the body works, mechanically, levers, plane of movements. It wasn't just sort of muscles and levers, but it was looking a bit deeper into fascia, really only sort of understanding how that works as well. It's quite it's a deep rabbit hole, that, but understanding how you can help people. And when someone comes to you with a shoulder injury, obviously you can do things to help that, stabilize it, strengthen it, but you're looking at other things. You're looking at their hips, you're looking at their alignment, you're looking at their feet. And ultimately, that's how you're going to really try, heal someone, is by sort of, I don't like using the word holistic because people always sort of tut at it, but really you're looking at the whole body, as opposed to just kind of pinpointing things and trying to work on them.
Cool. So on all that said, all the athletics and everything else, did that bring you into running? Yeah,
sorry, mate. I've digressed outside quite a bit.
We all digress at some point. That's what this is about. This is a chat.
It's my first podcast, guys. PT, Thai boxing, heavily beating me up. Got to the point where I just kind of tried to back away from it a little bit, but it left a massive hole. When you train that hard, all the time throughout the week, when that's gone, I wasn't prepared for how difficult I'd find it, to be honest. Sort of start drinking a bit more, just don't feel like you're fulfilled, which isn't a good thing for me because I'm not really about that. I like training for something. So that's when I got into more endurance sports and Spartan racing, and that just basically gave me what I was missing from the Thai boxing. It had an intensity about it. It had some technical ability to it as well. Started training, competing in Spartans and anything I could find. Didn't have a go at nuclear races till a lot later, mainly because I lived the other side of the Dartford crossing and it was such a nightmare to get over. I just always did the Spartans. But yeah, that kind of got me into that endurance space, doing some 50Ks and did my first half Ironman, some ultra swims. And moving into that endurance space, that's what really switched me onto the sports nutrition. And basically, when I was Thai boxing and fighting, you can eat well, obviously, you can hydrate, you can train, you can fight, and then you can drink water in between. Sometimes I'd have electrolytes and coconut oil, which we'll talk about in a bit. But I never had to eat during, I never had to fuel while I was doing anything. Whereas moving into the ultra space, obviously, you have to eat. You've got to get those calories in. Having taught people on a daily basis about adequate nutrition, my background in that is extremely simple, and it's the fact that me and my brothers, we've all been very lucky and brought up in a household where my mum had just cooked from scratch every day. It's how we learned to eat, and it's how we learned to cook for ourselves. So meat, veg, big meals, so that's all I knew. We didn't have sweets, we didn't have soft drinks. We were those kids who are trying to swap apples and cinnamon for wagon wheels at school, because we just didn't have it. And as I got older, I never really craved it. I mean, it was exciting to have it, and we'd have a McDonald's and stuff, but it never. I always preferred a roast dinner. It never flicked the switches I think it does for other people.
Man after my own heart. Give me a roast dinner any day. I'll eat. I love cooking. I don't cook enough because my partner Paula, she's an amazing cook. And she comes up with weird and wonderful things. We've travelled the world cooking in terms of she cooks a dish from Aruba or from the Caribbean or from Poland, or she just finds a recipe and just cooks. So I eat so much quality food. It actually kills me because then I've got to go and burn it off and do all of that stuff. And do you find that, like you've got a Sunday lunch and it's going to have those calories and all the stodginess and everything else, but you then got to go and train to burn it. I find myself, I've got to go and train.
Yeah, well, my sort of ethos and what I teach, that doesn't tend to happen. And the reason being is years ago, I kind of coined a phrase, naked cooking. And it's naked because the only ingredients I use are whole food ingredients. So the sorts of things that might make you feel a bit like, would be, all the roast potatoes or Yorkshire puddings, the sort of high calorific sections of the meal. So what I would tend to do is remove those from my diet. Anything that's ultra processed. I'm not saying a roast potato is ultra processed, but nothing wrong with roast potatoes. But I would remove ultra processed food from my diet. So bread, pasta, dairy, and I found that in just doing those things and eating a more balanced diet with meat, a vast range of rainbow vegetables and fruit, because of its nutritional value, I found that you actually can't put on weight, like excess weight, if you see what I mean. It's only really when you introduce those sort of higher calorie, lower nutritional value foods like bread, like pasta, that's when you start getting into problems. And you can get into the science of it and talk about blood sugar and all the rest of it. But when I'm talking to clients that don't know much about nutrition, I don't want to freak them out or give them too much to think about. And we all know, nutritious food is good for us. So it's really just reinforcing that. And if you can cut the other stuff out, you genuinely can't put on weight, especially if you're exercising.
Yeah, well, I exercise to lose weight. That's why I always stay under it, because, like I say, my Mrs. Paul is such a good cook. I just can't refuse it. So, you're this naked. We're not going to say naked cook in terms of you're naked, but the naked vegetables and everything else you use without using all this processed food. Is this sort of, when you was ultra running, was you fueling yourself on this type of food, or were you taking in some of the nutrition that was available back then? Like, maybe, I don't know, maybe Cliff bars, grenade bars, things like that. What was you fueling yourself on then?
So the first sort of real endurance thing, I guess, was I did a half Ironman, and so fueling for that. Obviously, went online, had a little read. I know what they were kind of telling us to eat anyway, but I'd never really gone into a sports shop and seen what's on offer. And I went in and had a look, and it just went against everything that I was teaching. Sweets and soft drinks,
Yeah.
and I just couldn't get it out of my head. We know sweets and soft drinks are bad. We know they are for multiple reasons. You shouldn't be eating them or drinking them, consuming them, certainly not every day. And if you're doing sport, to take them then when you're stressing your body, dehydrated, it makes no sense. And I realized that, all the cycling and the running magazines are saying, you've got to take this amount of carbs in, per hour, which is increasing year on year, apparently. I realized that, but I just never bought into it. And I did take some gels once. I ran when Battersea Power Station in London was still, when they were just about to start the building work, they had a Men's Health rat race run. Yeah. And they were giving out gels because it was sponsored. So I thought, yeah, let's give it a go. And I hoovered one down, and I just couldn't settle. I'm obviously full sending this thing. My heart rate is all over the place. I didn't feel like I could catch my breath. And then when I finished the race, placed well, but when I finished the race, I felt terrible, almost sort of hungover. And I thought, I did speak to someone about it, and they said, it's because you don't eat a lot of sugar. And I thought, well, I'm not going to eat a lot of sugar just so I don't feel bad when I race. It just didn't make sense to me. And you can't, I truly believe you can't out-train a bad diet. Our body needs macronutrients, which everyone knows, your proteins, your fats, and your carbs. But we also desperately need micronutrients, your vitamins, your minerals, more now than ever because of our ultra-processed diets. We really, and the quality of our fruit and veg, to be fair, it is so poor compared to 30, probably 20 years ago, that we kind of need to supplement with vitamins and minerals so we don't become deficient. And if you're racing, your body's burning through things, you need to take more, essentially. So yeah, I've never bought into it either. It doesn't matter which way you look at it. Consuming that stuff is bad for you, and the ingredients that make these things up, namely maltodextrin, that's my pet hate, is so bad on so many levels, and it's a little bit naughty how it's marketed as well. And all those red flags for me, more than enough to steer well clear.
So that actually brings us to my first question here, because I got some of our listeners to write in some questions. And one of the questions on here, which came from Mike, was, do gels work better when taken with water or not? So I think we're going to quite answerably turn around and say, don't take gels. Are we saying stay away from gels, Mike, as most as you can?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, my thing would be just you don't need them. You don't need them. There are other ways, like Enduo, but you really don't. Our bodies have acclimatized amazingly well, evolved even amazingly well over the years, to exercise, to eat food, as long as it's the right food. I'm not saying you don't want to be gnawing a block of cheese while you're going on an ultra run. There are things that work better inside your system than other things, things that are easier to break down. That's what I feel like I've dialed in on with Enduo, and just trying to problem solve, essentially, get something that's nutrient dense, that's energy dense, that's easy to break down, it's easy to take physically on the go, and tastes good. And if you can tick all those boxes, the body can take it and absorb it. It's going to reward you with a decent performance and not feeling rough afterwards. But just to answer the guy's question, Yes, it depends what sort of gel it is. And what I mean by that is they sell a lot of gels that are called isotonics gels, and that just means it's got a bit more water in it, so it's less dehydrating when you take it, as opposed to a normal gel. I think it's a hypertonic, so it's got a high concentration of sugar, or higher the concentration than the concentration of your blood, so it has to draw water out of your system to absorb it, essentially.
That's a great answer. I've never even thought about that. I had seen isotonic and hypertonic, and I never even knew the difference. So,
Yeah.
so thank you for that, James. You've also touched on one of the other questions we got there. Is real food better than gels? And a lot of the people who talked to me were talking about gels, because gels are the most common thing to take. Wherever you go, as you mentioned earlier, when you were looking it up, what do you take? And everywhere you look, there's gels this and gels that, and also they're easy to store. You even get these, and you probably know this, but there's belts out there that actually have little clip-on things for gels. People,
Yeah.
So everyone's promoting gels, which, as Nicky's put, is real food better than gels. And you actually said just then, yeah, real food is better than gels.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah. If we're gonna, I don't want to, I don't want to attack the gels, but I think I should point out a few facts, and then people can make up their own mind. So the vast majority of gels are made of maltodextrin. Maltodextrin is sold to you as a starch, as a total carbohydrate.
Yeah.
So if you look on the back of your nutritional table on the packet, it will say carbohydrates, starches, or total carbohydrates, and then of which sugars. So if it's saying it's got 50 grams of carbohydrates in it, and maybe 5 grams of sugar, so total, so it'd be 45 grams of starch essentially, and 5 grams of total sugars. A racer will look at that and they'll go, oh, brilliant, well, it's low sugar but it's high carb, and that's what everyone's telling me to take. You have to have the carbs or you're going to burn out, and all the rest of it. So people then think, okay, great, and they don't think that it's high sugar, if that makes sense. But the reality is that maltodextrin is derived from a starch, usually corn, sometimes potato, I think. So it started off as a starch, but inside your system, it responds to your blood sugar levels higher than glucose. So have you heard of glycemic index, the GI food?
I have, yes, I've heard of that.
Yeah,
I don't
so
understand it, but I've seen it.
So super simple. If you're eating a lollipop, which is pure sugar, it's going to have a very high GI. So you eat the lollipop, you absorb the sugar pretty much straight away. It spikes your blood sugar up. You release insulin, drops your blood sugar back down to a safe place. If you were to eat a potato, the potato is starch. You have to eat it. Your body then converts it to sugar, and the same process happens. Your blood sugar goes up, but instead of spiking, it's over a more linear kind of curve, because it takes longer. And then you secrete insulin, and it drops your blood sugar back down to a safe level. The issue with maltodextrin is it's sold as a starch, and it's listed like on the nutritional table as a starch, but when you take it, it's got a higher glycemic load than glucose or table sugar, so which is a bit naughty. So yeah, that's not great. On the side of what is one of the most important things when we're talking about racing, and what ruins most people's races, is your guts, right? How you feel when you're eating these things, whether you have to run to the loo, squat in the bush, as it is on race day, most people are pretty nervous. I don't think you ever not get nervous, which is a good thing, means you're excited for the race. And maltodextrin is not good for your microbiome at all. So if you imagine inside your gut, you want a great garden with lots of different flowers flourishing, okay? That essentially is your immune system. If you have a very good gut microbiome, you will be healthy and you will have a strong immune system, and you'll be able to get over things. when you take things like maltodextrin and other ultra processed foods, or even the preservatives, the colorings, the artificial flavorings that are in that gel, all of those things, they decimate your microbiome and they promote the growth of bad bacteria. And bad bacteria in your gut is the sort of thing that causes gut issues, IBS, depression, tiredness, fatigue, all the things that you see on Instagram nowadays that they're promoting, take this health drink to get rid of your brain fog, and take this health drink to get rid of your depression. Really, if we think more about just fixing our gut through good quality food and nutritious foods, then you won't have any of those symptoms, basically.
I like that. I get that garden analogy there is absolutely brilliant. I like that because for me, I do take a lot of micro organisms, probiotics. So I take them in tablet form as opposed to these drinks. Everyone's trying to promote yogurts a minute, and I read about the yogurts, and they don't have enough live cultures in. Whereas if you take the tablets, you get far more live cultures. So I take the tablets, and over the last 2 months I've been taking them, I found my stomach's absolutely settled to a point where it feels absolutely brilliant.
Brilliant.
But this brings me back to a point. I ran a race on the first of this year. So the first of the year, I ran a race, and I took some gels, and I've just looked at one pack now. And I only took 2 of these gels, but I had bag guts for like nearly a full day. I'm not going to say what brands they are, but
it's all the same anyway. Yeah.
The carbohydrates were 33 grams, and it says of which your sugars were 29 grams.
Wow.
I mean, I'm presuming that's quite high. And I never look at ingredients. I get things and I just think, let's test them. Let's see what they're like. But that explains to me a little bit why I guess my guts weren't right for a few days, afterwards.
What they'll do is sometimes, and this is another kind of a good marketing ploy, is they'll have a special ratio that's been, tested in their sports facilities by their athletes, and it'll be a ratio of the sugars. So you might have maltodextrin in there, you might have fructose in there, you might have glucose in there, and they'll come out with this ratio like a 3:1:2, and they'll say that's the most optimal ratio for your body to absorb as much as possible. And they'll really push it on performance, and they'll say to make you perform at your best, and you'll absorb it super quickly, and all these things. And then they'll chuck a study in there as well, where they've had their guys on bikes, and they're burning through this stuff. And all of that's great. It's great sort of selling, marketry. But the reality is you're still hoovering down ultra processed sugars for like a minimal gain, probably. And the offshoot of that is it will ruin your guts, And on a lot of their websites, they'll say, you have to kind of train your guts to get used to them, which is just pretty absurd. It's a bit like telling someone to drink more alcohol so they can handle more alcohol. You don't really do that.
Oops, that's where I've been going wrong as well.
Yeah. You're on the low tolerance, mate.
Tamar sent an interesting question. What inspired you to create Enduo? So, I mean, is it these gels that you first started taking? You tell us.
Yeah, it's obviously the sports nutrition that's out there, and it's also when I developed Enduo is, as I said before, it's a simple, good quality nutrition. It's not overly complicated. It's the vast majority of it is dates and coconut. The reason being is dates are amazing fruit. We've been eating them for probably millions of years, crossing deserts. Cultures break fasts eating dates. The body absorbs them and uses the nutrients very well. They're extremely nutrient dense as well. And they're a great source of carbohydrate. Coconut contains a fantastic fat called MCT, which your body will break down and burn very quickly when compared to other fats. It doesn't need to be stored and then burnt from storage. It can essentially, via your gut, be transported straight into your bloodstream, which is fantastic, because if you're burning fat when you're exercising, you're sparing your muscle glycogen, so your stored energy that you kind of want to hang on to, whilst also putting stuff in as well, and you get kind of double your money. A gram of carbohydrate has 4 calories, a gram of fat has 9. So the combination of the two work really well. And hopefully, as you said earlier, when you tried Enduo, you felt that you absorbed it well, didn't bang around in your stomach, it sat well, and you had good energy from it.
For me, it's a game changer. I said this to you earlier, James, and I'll say it here live now. You sent me 4 packets. You said, and test 4 packets, see what you think to them. And thank you very much. You are going to get an order out of me, by the way. But thank you very much for them 4 packets. My first run, I thought, right, I've got a 15-mile run planned. First thing, though, what I liked about it, the very first thing that I liked about it, you sent it in a box, and there's a little slip in that box that says, use within 48 hours, store in a fridge, use within 48 hours, or pop in your freezer. That tells me that this is proper food. As soon as I read that, I thought, wow, this is proper food, because every gel packet I've ever bought and every nutritional bar I've ever bought, at no point does it say, pop it in a fridge. None of it says it. And I'm just thinking, and it made me think, why doesn't it say it? And it's like, because it's not proper food.
It'll never go off.
Made stuff.
Yeah, it'll never go off. And interestingly, I mean, we've probably all seen the programs where they get ultra processed burgers against like a homemade burger, and they let them rot, and the homemade burger kind of rots as you would expect. It goes all furry and moldy, and the other one just looks immaculate. Nothing happens because it's such poor quality and it's so full of preservatives that the microbes don't want to eat it and can't break it down. So if the microbes in the air that break food down and rot vegetables and rot fruits, if they don't even want to break this stuff down, how do you expect your guts and your body to do the same thing?
Exactly. And that really made me think. It made me stand up and actually take notice of what you'd sent me. And I was like, right, okay, let's have a proper look at these. Let's have a proper look at them. I thought, right, the only way to do it is to go on a run. So I popped one in my pocket. The good news is they don't take up a lot of space. They're a little bit bigger than a gel packet for most people, but they don't take up a lot of space. It easily fit in my pocket. And I think I'd run about 3 miles. I think I'd done about 20 minutes. And I thought, right, let's pop it open. Let's see what it's like. And you'd said to me, take it small bits often rather than lots of it. So every 20, 30 minutes, have a little bit of it, as much as you want. And I did. I just had a little bit of it. The consistency is phenomenal, because I don't know what I expected. I didn't know if I expected like baby food or like toothpaste, or if I expected like a watery consistency. And it's got its own. It's different to anything I've ever done before. It's quite thick, but it's not like toothpaste. And it just as though you put it in your tongue, it just melts in your mouth. It's like a proper piece of steak without it being a proper piece of steak. You put a proper piece of steak in your mouth and it melts. It's exactly what this did. And I was like, wow, that's good. And it was as though I was feeling my body absorbing it, if that makes sense.
You genuinely were. So that's awesome. But yeah, when I was developing it, again, like I said, it's all problem solving. The nutritional value, there is no nutritional value in sports nutrition unless they fortify it with some vitamins and minerals. It actually takes from you, because it's so poor. It's draining your body of its own nutrients to actually process this stuff. So for me, I need something nutritionally was very good. Good carbohydrates, good fats, easy to take, easy to have in your mouth. When I'm eating this stuff, the same with yourself, your heart rate's all over the place, you're breathing through your mouth, sometimes through your nose, so you want something that you can have in your mouth and it can kind of happily sit in there and not, jump around like eating a dry, nutty bar. or that's too loose and you end up with sticky goo everywhere, So finding that kind of balance took a little bit of doing. Obviously, we want to keep the calorie content nice and high as well, because it has got fat in it, and it's carbohydrate and fat. The sort of standard carbohydrate fueling protocol, which just talks about carbs, whether you have aiming for 60 grams of carbs an hour or up to 80 grams of carbs an hour. With Enduo, because it's carbohydrates and fat, I always urge people to think more about the calories that they'd be burning. And as we know, I don't think you're ever going to truly match what you're burning as you're racing. There's always going to be a deficit, but it's just working out, what that deficit is, and if you can manage it, just depending on how long your race is. So if I was doing anything over a 6-hour race, I would start looking at actual food stops as well, instead of just doing a duo. Whereas anything up to that, which is the longest stuff I've done is about 6, maybe. Have I done 8 hours? Possibly. But it would just be with Enduo, water and electrolytes, and caffeine towards the end, just to kind of keep me focused a little bit.
No, and I get that. I think I used a full packet or just short of a full packet in a 3-hour run. But at no point did I feel I was overstuffing my face or I needed to take extra. I don't know. It's a game changer for me, James. I've said this to several people. I was shocked at how well I feel it worked. I'm like I said, it's something I'm going to be using. It's interesting you mentioned there, though, that it's up to 6 hours. It's or that thing you then need to have food stops, because one of the questions on from Nikki was, is Enduo Sports as good as real food on a long run? It says up to 12 hours on this. So up to a 12-hour run. So what you're saying is you need to, Enduo's great. It will fill all those gaps, but you need to have something else. Is that what I got from you then?
Yeah, so obviously Enduo is real food, but it is, as I said before, there's a little bit more to it, but essentially it's dates and coconut. And if you're doing a 12-hour race, as people know who do ultras, you go through lots of different things in your head. We've made Enduo in 4 different flavors, predominantly so that you get a bit of a change, and you get that sort of, it's not just the same flavor, and dates are fairly strong, so it's quite a task to do that. But when you're looking at more of like a 12-hour race, I would certainly be looking at broadening my nutritional intake. And my sort of go-to, probably sounds really rough, but it just works for me, is either like a potato fish stew. So I use like white fish, potatoes. I cook down some carrots, stuff that I know I can absorb and the body will utilize really quickly, and I'll make it into sort of like a kind of like a wet, hot pot, I guess. I mean, I'd eat it cold because if you're out on a race, whatever. But I noticed for me things like that, food like that are simple: potatoes, carrots, white fish, got some good protein in there, lots of nutrients in the carrots. The white potato is going to help. You could top it off with a little bit of olive oil as well. So you're getting a lot of nutrients in a simple dish that your body's going to break down and utilize. So that's what's worked for me. But obviously everyone's slightly different. I certainly wouldn't personally go for anything with gluten in it, or dairy.
And that's what Kelly's asked. Kelly's asked, are there any foods they should avoid either pre-run or mid-run? So you would say stay away from dairy products?
Yeah, I mean, I don't eat dairy. I'm not allergic to it. I'm not allergic to anything. But as far as sports, I don't believe it has a place in sport. Dairy, no matter what you think about it, it is from an animal, is the hormone secretion of a cow. you don't have to be allergic to it for it to make your body create mucus. There's a word for it. I can't remember what it is. It's a mucosal creator or something.
Okay.
So you, like I said, you don't have to be allergic to it. Some of us are geared to break dairy down quite well, but it does make you secrete more mucus. And if you're fighting or racing or high rocks, high intensity stuff, you're trying to maximize the oxygen and get as much CO2 out as possible. If you've got sort of bunged up sinuses or you're a little bit, mucusy, it just isn't going to help you. It does not make you faster. So that's really why I kind of steer clear of it. Having said that, if I go to my family's house and my mum makes a cheesecake, I'd hoover it down. But you won't see blocks of cheddar or milk in my fridge.
I remember Mr. Bird once telling me, who used to run Rocket Race, David, he once turned around and said that he doesn't eat cheese or dairy products because milk is only designed to do one thing, and that's make baby cows fat. So why would he want to eat anything that's going to make him fat? So that's always stuck in my head. So I don't do very much dairy products. I mean,
I didn't want to get too deep into it, but essentially dairy it's fat suspended in water. That's milk, and then the harder it gets or the thicker it gets, you can churn it, you can do this. It's all very clever, but as far as if you're an athlete, I really don't think it has a place. But
no, I get that. I get a lot.
Dairy man. And gluten's the same. Obviously it's not dairy, but gluten is a protein found in wheat, and you don't have to be gluten intolerant. You could think you're not gluten intolerant, but the structure of that gluten protein, everyone struggles to break it down. I don't think there's anyone on this earth where your gut goes, oh, awesome, gluten, we'll use that for this. It is always a struggle to break it down. And the years of farming and GMOing, our wheat and the structure of the arable crops are completely different to what they were anyway. So they're so much harder because they've got to deal with our crap weather, essentially. Yeah. So they're not what they were anyway. And that's another reason I don't muck about with, gluten bread. When I see people at High Rocks and they're like, oh man, I carb loaded last night, I had a pizza, and this morning I've had bagels with honey and bananas all over it. And I just think, mate, you've just slowed yourself down.
And that's quite interesting, that, because, I guess that might be potentially a myth then of some kind, because, ever since I've been running, people talk about carb loading. If you're going to go and do an ultra run, people know that I'm into my 50K, 50 mile stuff now. So everyone's talking about carb loading the day before, whether it be pasta or whether it be a pizza. I mean, my favourite, I've got to turn around and say, do I carb load? I tend to have a bit of battered fish the night before if I'm going to do a 50 miler. But then I end up peeling the batter off it, if I'm honest. And someone told me that that's the best bit of carbs, and I'm thinking, but it just doesn't. It doesn't agree with me.
It's the only bit of carbs on the fish.
And I'm peeling half of it off. So it's not always. Yeah. I don't always do it right.
Well, so carb loading definitely is a thing. The way I look at it, like, you could say that I eat low carb because I don't tend to eat potato. I don't tend to eat rice, definitely not bread or pasta. I just eat a lot of vegetables with my meat. And that could be, roast dinner, it could be Chinese style, Mexican style, Indian style, European, it doesn't matter. The spices and, all the other amazing stuff that helps. But the sort of the outline of the meal is the same, if you see what I mean. And I just don't muck about with those other things. Having said that, when I have a long race, like a 3 hour plus, I do carb load, but it only looks like, for me, if I include white rice, usually pilau, because I think it's the best rice, hasn't been mucked about with. If I include pilau for 2 days to a race day, for me, and that's like for lunch and dinner, that's enough to carb me up, and I can feel it because I feel more swollen. And then that's plenty. The thing to remember is most people, because they eat carbohydrates on the daily, they are carved up. So their muscles are already saturated with glycogen, their liver's full, so to carb up before a long race, could potentially be an issue because you're almost worried. So you're getting stuff down, and you certainly don't want to go into a race, with a load of food in you. You see the same thing with hydration as well. People kind of panic and they're drinking loads, the days leading up to your race. And then, the best thing you want before a race is a decent night's sleep. It's hard enough as it is because you're nervous and you usually have to get up early for your race. So you're going to go and have to drive somewhere. So I always make sure I'm super hydrated like the week before, and then I just go back to like normal, so I'm kind of already at that level, if you see what I mean.
So rather than carb load and hydrate the day before, plan it in advance, so you're actually doing it over 2-3 days or even a week if you're doing the hydration.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like that idea.
Yeah, and the thing is that kind of ethos, if you like, works across the same principle as Enduo, in that if you consistently eat well, you're consistently eating good foods and not bad foods, your body is running as optimally as it can, ideally, So when you come to race day, you've done all your training, you've done all your prep, your engine's been burning the best fuel it can, it's been recovering enough, it's really going to put you in an amazing place on race day. And this is the thing, most sports nutrition doesn't go into that. It says you do you, eat your bagels, drink the honey out of the jar, do your park run, and then when you race, take our gear, whether it's a drink or a gel or whatever, and we'll get you across the line. But that's because people don't really understand what energy is. Energy is created in our mitochondria, like thousands in every cell of our body, and the more healthy you are consistently, the more efficient those mitochondria are going to be. So that's why people that are healthy are genuinely have more energy through the day. They don't get the dips, they don't get the brain fog, they don't get ill as much, they've got a good immune system, because they're functioning better. So when you go into race day, pulling more energy out of your body is easy. It's kind of like having a sports car that's always been serviced and then taking it for a blast around a track. It's going to perform amazingly. Whereas if you've got a decent rig, but you kind of just leave it in the shed until race day, and then try and blast it around the track, you're gonna blow the rivets out of it, So it's I love an analogy, but so I think people forget, what true energy, a sugary drink, a caffeinated drink, we won't mention any names, they're all the same, that isn't really energy, it's just a stimulant. You're kind of creating debt in your body taking that, because you then have to process the crap and the damage that you just put through your system. And people kind of will go, yeah, but it's only, it's only once in a while, or it's only for this, only for that. I mean, it isn't. If you take sports nutrition, it's more than once in a while, and you're putting sometimes a week's worth of sugar, or sugars, whatever they're going to be, through your system in the matter of a few hours, and you're stressing your system, you're dehydrated, you're catabolic, you're breaking down. So yeah, it's bananas to me. We should be optimizing the whole time.
And I get that, and you changed my thought process. I'm going to talk a bit about Enduo now, because I want to couple of things, and I'm going to be I'm going to be selfish here, because I'm going to be talking about my races a little bit. So I'm going to pick your advice here. So I've got there's a lot of lapped races coming up now. A lot of events coming up with lap races. We have got this next weekend. We have got Nuts 4 laps that people are doing. We've got World's Toughest Mudder coming up. We have got Nuclear Oblivion coming up. We've got Farmyard Jam coming up. There's a lot of these lapped races now, where you're potentially out on the course for anything from between each lap from 40 minutes up to maybe an hour and a half. You know, as I mentioned earlier on, when I'd been taking Enduo, I did it like every 20 to 25 minutes, I want to say, small amounts.
Yeah.
On these races where you're going to be out longer, you know, when you're coming back into your pits, at that point, would you take more than what you think you need? Or, you know, would you go, what's your thoughts on that?
So how long is a lap in time, roughly?
Well, that's very. So I mean, let's talk. We'll talk about nuts first of all. So nuts is 7K. So I would expect someone to do a lap in an hour to an hour and 30.
Yeah. It's difficult because I'm so used to carrying nutrition. I would have a camel pack, and obviously, so I'd have a couple of pouches on me, and then I would just refuel, you know, when I need to fill my pack up. So it's not overly heavy. I'm a big eater and a big drinker when I run. So the Spartan races that I do, you know, we do the ultras, but I'd turn up at the beasts, and I'd be like the only one with a pack on. And I know you can do it fasted and you can all the rest of it, but that's what worked well with me. I tend to get through one pouch an hour. Everyone is slightly different. I've seen guys from the My Zone team, and they're doing functional fitness events, kind of CrossFit based stuff, and some of those guys will hoover the whole pack. And I say to them, dude, it's like 300 calories, and they're like, yeah, fine, whack, and then they're good. They're just out on the dance floor doing their thing, maybe with a bit of water and electrolytes in between. So it is kind of down to the individual, but I would say think about how long the whole day is, and again, have a little think about that calories in, calories out, because if your body thinks that there's a bit of an overlap and you're not and you're in too much of a deficit, it will start telling you to hold back and to pull back, and that's kind of, you know, the downfall, isn't it, of a race, is when you know your body's putting you in safety mode, you know, even though you've got plenty more. It's kind of going nah. So I would always kind of plan it out calorie wise, and then maybe do, you know, even though they're hour or so laps, you know, you do like the first 2 hours on Enduo, water and electrolytes, then you come in, give yourself a bit more time, have something to eat, and then go back out. So you're kind of pairing it, going back to my sort of fish stew. I'm not saying you have to have fish stew, but
no, I get that,
you know. So yeah, it's I don't know if I answered that. Did I answer that?
Yeah, I think the way I'm getting from it is everyone's slightly different. We should be aiming for at least one pouch per hour, or you know, between 1 to 2, depending on how much you want, I guess. 1 pouch an hour. I'm going to say though, am I right in saying there's no harm in doing what the My Zone guys are doing though, and literally down in 1 pouch while you're in the pits? If you think that's going to help you, then you can do that. Are the carbs that are in it, and I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask you, are they like slow releasing over the next hour then? So you're not going to get a massive, if I took a gel, so for instance, when I take a gel, I get a huge hit, I get a huge sugar rush. I've never got this with Enduo when I've been testing it, but I've never gone through a full pack. I'm not going to get no hits or anything like that. It's going to be slow releasing because it's natural foods and things like that. That's it.
So the reason why that is because dates, Enduo has the whole date in it. That's why it's that paste. It's not a date syrup. Some of these, I've seen some kind of natural gels, and they'll be like beetroot and date syrup. When you make a syrup, you strip anything else out of it. So, you know, for me, that's not good because you lose all the nutritional value. It's a highly concentrated syrup. Usually it's a bit more acidic, just in the process of sort of concentrating it. So whereas with ours, it's the whole date. It's just blended. Dates are 50-50 glucose and fructose. They're bound to their fiber. Sugar is bound to the fiber in the food. So your body has to pull that apart and digest it, and that takes longer, and that's what gives you that curve. That's why you hear a lot of diabetics can eat dates without an issue. Obviously, it's going to spike your blood sugar, but because it's so natural, and our body, that's what our body wants. You're going to get that nice curve. It will come in quicker than the coconut oil, which is great. So you'll get a little pick me up. And then the coconut oil will start kicking in. And when coconut oil kicks in, there's no stimulant. There's no like whoosh. When the dates kick in, you'll feel it but it would just be like someone gently turning up the volume or the brightness, Whereas when the coconut oil kicks in, you won't necessarily feel it. What you will feel is you'll look at your watch and you'll think, bloody hell, where did that last hour ago? Like I feel all right. Usually I might be struggling a little bit at the moment, but I just feel good. And that's because the coconut oil, being a fat, doesn't spike your sugars, doesn't interrupt any of that. It just gets burnt quickly and keeps you nice and stable. And it's, calorific, going back to per gram, pound for pound. It's twice the calories of carbohydrate. So there's quite a lot there. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It makes very much sense. That, I hope everyone else gets that. It makes sense to me, and I'm a pretty newbie on this, so yeah, it makes sense to me. One of the things I have seen on your website, it says, should you drink water with Enduo? I'm a big fan of. I don't tend to drink water. I know a lot of my running colleagues don't, so they'll take. And I'll mention two brands. So there are other brands out there. Is BLDR Builder, or they'll take Tailwind, because it contains electrolytes. Now, I know Enduo contains electrolytes and salts and things like that to prevent cramps. Would taking the specialist hydration, with more electrolytes in and more salts in, would that impact Enduo?
I would say it would only support it. I have water. I just hate washing my Camel Pack out, so I only ever put water in it because I hate those Milton tablets. So I just have water in it, and then when I get home, it lives in the freezer when it's empty. But I do take electrolytes, and I tend to buy the salt sticks. Have you heard of them?
Yes, yeah.
The little tabs, because I think they're great. You can eat a lot of them. If you look at the pack, you can actually get through quite a few of them. They don't cause me any upset, and they're tasty. You get a real they have a really limey, zingy lime flavor. The orange ones are nice. So when you're in the back end of your 50K, water's getting a bit boring. The Duo is delicious, but you're thinking something a bit more snazzy, tickle the taste buds a bit, then they're amazing. They freshen you up, and obviously you're loading those electrolytes in. Depending on the person, depending on the weather, in the summer you're going to obviously take on more, you'll be sweating, losing more salt. It's down to the individual. I'd always recommend, if you're doing any sort of endurance race, to add electrolytes. I'm just a bit of a stickler for the ultra processed food, the UPF. So I'd always be looking at the amount of sugar that's in it and what it is. If it's like an artificial sweetener, if there's loads of preservatives in it. And unfortunately, a lot of those powdered drinks that you scoop in yourself have quite a lot of hidden crap in it. So
check out the side is what we're saying. Check out what's in it.
So, but I'm, like I said, I'm quite a hardliner. If it's tropical spice flavor, it's bright red and tastes super sweet, then it's not for me.
Fantastic. And Jules, fast making its name in the UK. We've spoke about that. It's really going. Tamar said, "Have you got plans to take over the world?" Everyone knows I have plans to take over the world. Never come to it yet, but have you got plans to take over the world?
I mean, absolutely, yes. And Enduo as a product, I love. As I said, I'm a big problem solver anyway. Everything I do in my work, in my past, has always really been problem solving, and sports nutrition is a problem. If you listen to all the studies and industry funded research out there, it could be easily swayed. But we know what's bad for us. Sweets and soft drinks. Why would you take it when you're playing sport? It is bonkers. So for me, getting the product out there, but also the education that comes with the brand. a lot of the shows that we go to, getting into new sports, when we first launched, we got into OCR quite heavily. Fantastic community, as really tight-knit community, amazing people, all abilities, everyone supports each other. Talking to people at shows and like tonight, educating, swapping stories, but planting that seed that we already know, and you can put a few sort of bits of morbid data in there. We are unfortunately globally we're the sickest we've ever been, which is quite sad, really, and it's nothing to do with obesity. Obviously there is obesity, but I think for a number of years it was blamed that obesity was kind of causing all these data to show that there's a lot of chronic inflammation and disease out there, but actually it isn't. It's young people, it's slim people, and we are, unfortunately, a lot of it is coming from our food, so we need to all wake up a little bit and realize that the stuff that's packaged and flashing in front of you saying eat me is the stuff you don't want to be eating. Lean more towards the things that aren't flashing and asking you to eat me, which is obviously your meat, your veg, and your fruit.
Cool. Before we wrap it up, James, I'm just going to let our listeners know that if you are interested in Enduo Sports, I want you to head over to Enduo Sports. That's ENDUO SPORTS.com. Okay, I want you to click on the training box, people. Click on the training box and open it and buy one. It's £14. Make sure you order the raspberry and sour cherry because that is the best flavour of them all, in my opinion. So do it. 14 quid, you get 4 pouches. It's a bargain, guys. It's absolute bargain. Head over and check them out. James, I'm going to let you have the last word before we go.
So I could just give you a brief look at what this year is going to look like. So we are currently going through a bit of a scale up. And whilst at the moment you have to refrigerate Enduo, hopefully by April, May, we'll have some new packaging which will be sporting the Informed Sport, so the drug testing stamp of approval for our elite athletes and pro athletes, so they don't have to worry. Obviously, it's completely organic anyway, but just really gives peace of mind when we're looking at more sort of professional teams and industries like that. And we will also be getting an ambient shelf life. So baby food has an ambient shelf life and is organic and has 0 preservatives in it. And we've done a lot of research into working out how we can get ours to have a longer shelf life without being in the fridge, keeping it as clean as you can as possible. So as always, you won't see any preservatives, emulsifiers, artificial sugars, artificial flavors. You won't see any of that on the back of the pack. It's pure, clean, transparent, and really excited. And that will enable us to get to Europe and potentially America. So to dominate the world.
Dominate the world. I love that. Thank you very much for joining me, James. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Loved it.
I don't know what you want. Let's have a bit of fun till I die.
Thank you for listening to the UKOCR podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening to our podcast today. If you like what we do, please think about joining our Patreon. It only costs £2 a month and it goes to help supporting us to put these podcasts on. Or if you fancy a one-off payment, just buy us a beer. The links to both are in the description. In the meantime, you stay safe and you keep on running, everyone, and I'm sure we'll see you on the course soon. Take care. Bye.